So that's BigQuery. Now let's go over here and talk about another service called TensorFlow. And then we'll need to get started on the closeout. Okay, so now TensorFlow is going to be a tool that we probably will want to use when we get into, oh, I'm not where I should be here, hold on. So TPUs. So I want to point out TPUs actually. So you can see there I have actually a cluster I deployed with TPUs on it. And you can also deploy this in Compute Engine. So if I go over here to Compute Engine, and I go over here to select TPUs, I could enable the API. There is a cost though. Again, you're going to play with this, but be aware that TPU is basically a TensorFlow processing unit. It's meant for you to run your models in against. So this is how you could train your machine learning models. So you can go ahead and enable that. Now, another tool that you could use is go over here to TensorFlow.org. And this is where you go to actually use another cloud service called TensorFlow.Cloud. If I go here, there's tutorials you could use. There's a guide. But if you scroll down here, you can see that they have, for example, some example code you could start with. And this is a good way to start training your models, to play around and see what happens if I change, for example, the model from Keras to another version, for example. Or if I say compile different data, I'll get a different output. Now, if I go to run code, they have an interactive notebook. So I go run code. Now, to do justice to this is about 40-minute exercise. So we don't have time to go through everything, but I want to get folks started if this is of interest. And again, this is a whole separate sort of discussion generally, but I want you to be aware of this just to give you some ideas. So what this is going to do, this is sort of like a tutorial with sort of like what would be called a training model combined all at the same time. And what we could do is scroll down, and if you scroll here to each of these brackets, so for example, you're going to, so what the way this works is this is called, actually they changed the name of this a little while ago. It's called Google Collaboratory. It was like TensorFlow Cloud, but it's actually now called Collaboratory. And this is going to run Python. So remember, Python comes over and over, right, for a reason. So what we could do here is we could select this arrow, and what this is going to do is execute that in this session we're in. So that'll go ahead and execute. And then I go down here, execute this data set. And then when I highlight this, you'll see that it was executed at 5:52. Then I scroll down here, you can see that it's going to run. And then down here, this just ran. So this, what this did is it ran a prediction model, and it looked at an array of data. And here is sort of where it's at. And now we're going to kick off, again, another function that is going to try to interpret this differently. And then we scroll down, and for time purposes, I don't have time to go through everything, but I'd highly encourage you to go through. And yes, you could use GitHub as well. So, so there's plenty of great resources on GitHub. So also too, this is an IDE basically, a developer environment. So you go over here and you look at the code history, you could look at differential notebooks, you could insert different cells, you could look at the runtime. I could restart this as well. And there's tools that we can look at. And then over here, these are the resources we can look at to look at the local runtime and then edit. So this is just one of the things we could do. Then if I go back here, if we scroll down, there's an expert one as well that you could play with. And then go down here, I think over here, there's TensorFlow. Here's a GitHub. Here's the GitHub for TensorFlow. Over here is the repositories. You can see here, now look at this. Top languages. What's up at number 1? Python. So one of the things I'd recommend is that you would go and maybe download a tool, and to see if you really want to get into this. It's called Python, or PyCharm, I should say. And this is basically a Python CLI. And then I also used to have over here a interface, an IDE called PyCharm. And I think I took it, no, I took it out probably, but I'll show you where you can get it though. I was a little tight on space, unfortunately. Let's see here. Thought I had it. So let me, okay. I have R3 demo bench, but I don't have Python. Okay, must have uninstalled it. JetBrains. Oh, here it is. I was looking for PyCharm. I knew it was, something wasn't right. I know I didn't uninstall it. Okay, so PyCharm is basically a local IDE you could use to compile your Python code. So you can see there, anytime we see a .py, that's Python. That's basically saying you're working with Python. And again, you can see here I have a blockchain that I was deploying here in Python. So Python is just the all-around Swiss knife, basically, of programming. It's really easy to use. And also why people like it so much is because there's such a robust amount of tool sets available. And if you go to GitHub for Python, it's one of the most active out there as well. So feel free to check that out as well.